Welcome to the Millennial Diner podcast. It's me, Jeff. I'm here at the diner with Phil as usual, and today, oh my God, this is so cool. It's Catherine. Hey, Catherine.
Hey.
Welcome to the diner. We're so excited to have a meal with you, have some coffees with you, and chat about a very special album. I'm just going to get started. I'm feeling very healthy today. I'm going to do a Greek salad, fold the feta, dressing on the side, extra olives, and a side of pita and hummus, and a coffee. No oat milk this time.
What goes? Is it black olive or green olive that goes in a Greek salad?
Black olive usually,
Black olive.
but
Okay.
yeah, but maybe they'll surprise me and mix it up.
Is there a difference between that and a Kamala? Wait, was it? Was it? What was on the can?
Kalamata.
Yeah.
Kalamata olive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are kind
You
of
can.
purple.
Those are
Yeah,
kind of. You can tell I eat a lot of olives.
you should. They're salty and delicious.
Well, my wife eats a lot of olives. And my daughter does, but then my son and I, nope, not going near it.
Anti-olive. Well, that's
Mm.
what a stance. Catherine, what are you going to have today at the diner?
I will do a classic eggs Benedict.
Hell yeah,
Yeah, but no meat though.
no meat. Phil, what are you going to do? You gonna have
Well,
what you want? Benedicts are pretty good and classic. Are you going to have one?
Yeah.
they are very classic. They are. I think I'm gonna have rye toast with a little bit of butter and black coffee. I think that sounds good today.
All right. Well, Catherine, Phil has a tendency to order the exact same thing every time,
Every
and it
time.
doesn't get on anybody's nerves. Don't worry. Um,
Certainly not mine, considering I keep ordering it every time.
that's true. Yeah. Well, we're not gonna bury the lead here. We're here to talk about a pivotal album from the punk emo scene called Full Collapse by the band hailing from New Brunswick, New Jersey, Thursday. This is their 2001 album, their second album, and it was released on Victory Records and produced by Salvatore Villanueva, who also produced the following year another Victory Records album by Taking Back Sunday, Tell All Your Friends. So,
Uh, well, how about that?
yeah, pretty.
I always felt there was kind of a vibe that kind of connected those two. Now I know why. All right.
Yeah, two cornerstone albums of this time period and scene. The album came out April 10th, 2001. Do you guys remember 2001?
I
I
do.
do. That's a big year. Yeah, that's a
It
big
is
year.
a big year. This album, of course, I mean, you can't look at 2001 without thinking what happened, especially in the U.S. in September of 2001. But this album's April 10th, so we're it's an interesting time, I think, because it's kind of like this end of innocence. The next few months are about to be like
Mhm.
this time period is like things are going to shift a lot
Mhm.
socially later this year. So it's interesting that this album comes out. And think about Thursday, and I wonder what you all think about it too. They're not like a band that takes their job lightly.
No.
Like they have something to say and they have things to point out, and they're pushing a message that I feel like at this time too was rare, especially in a lot of these emo punk bands at this time. I don't know what do you guys think about Thursday's whole I don't know, like their thesis of the band kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the things that drew me to them is that it seemed like there was a lot of substance within the lyrics and within like the messaging of the band, which I personally appreciate. That's what I look for and what I listen to. So
Yeah,
it really drew me in.
They're poets. Like
Yeah.
they're like lyrically they're Jeff's a poet. Like he is. They have this wonderful, heartfelt. Like they took the ethos of punk rock of looking at something they didn't like, and we're
Hmm.
going to talk about it. But they talked about it in a far more profound, poetic way, which drew me in because at the time I was a wannabe poet and wanted to be, it was like, oh, that's what I want to be. It would be a heartfelt poet and all that. And then here comes a band that writes poems. Music goes to them and then screams. And I'm like, I am here for that. I think that's what I'm here for. So I think ultimately that's where it got me with Thursday. Is just I've never heard the screamo thing at that until then. Like that was like a newish thing happening where really it was like screaming at it, and I was like, okay, I kind of can get behind this, and I just love they bring an intelligence and
Mhm.
a sense of literature to their work.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's funny. Jeff Rickley, the lead singer, Phil, you mentioned Jeff earlier. It's what you're talking about. Um, the whole time band, you see that I don't know, like authorship to his writing. Like it's not just song lyrics. Like everything is a little deeper. And the next album, which we've touched on before because it came out in 2003, War All the Time was their
Yeah,
big major label debut. And it kind of took what they started with this and then added on the shine of what happens when you have a major label money behind you and actually time to like perfect your sound. So I think these two albums are like a one-two punch for when you think about what Thursday is. Um, but it's funny because he is such a poet, and here in the year 2023, he just released his first novel, which I think is really, it's
Hmm.
like you could tell that the person writing these songs was one day gonna write a novel. It's like it's all there for the way he works. So yeah, this album came out 2001. Their first album, Waiting, came out in 1999, a very small indie album from New Jersey on a little small label called Eyeball Records, um, which is a lot of stuff about Thursday is very important to the bigger overall scene because um, the following year, some super fans of Thursday would ask him to produce their first album on Eyeball Records, and that band was My Chemical Romance. So they're like Thursday's and Jeff Rickley's fingerprint on what this whole scene would eventually become is there from the beginning. And they came out of that New Brunswick scene. So, Jeff and all the rest of the band, from what I understand, they were going to hardcore shows. I believe Jeff was one of the houses in New Brunswick that actually have the shows in the basement. Like
I
it
think
was
that's
he
right.
a
Yes, yeah,
centerpiece of the scene. So when they started kind of popping off for us, me and Phil, we were Long Island, and for us, we always talk about New Jersey as kind of part of our playground a little bit. Like we had New York City, we had Jersey, and we had Long Island, and sometimes
Hmm.
upstate New York. But like we would like go to shows everywhere.
Hmm.
So they kind of they I actually didn't really know them until this album came out. This
I'd
was the
agree.
one where they started
Yeah,
kind of rising above a little bit, and
Hmm.
and then as soon as I heard this album, I was like record scratch, like what is this? What was Thursday like? As far you're from, you can tell us where you're from, of course, as well, but you're from Southern California. I'd
Yeah.
love to hear like what the scene was like around that time for you and how you found these bands.
Yeah. So I grew up in San Fernando Valley. So like in the shadow of big LA. Um, I went to high school at Birmingham and just found a group of friends who were into punk, who were into hardcore, who were into all of these things. I always thought they were like a little bit cooler than me. I was
Hmm.
kind of a dork and a lit nerd. And yeah, I think at this time, this was my 2001 was senior year for me. So, like, really getting to the edge of like thinking about who I am and who I want to be. I really like took school really seriously, but also thought it was stupid in one way. So I think like everything I did was like bent toward thinking that I was some sort of like anarchist going against the grain, but I was also a straight A student and really cared about my studies. um,
An anarchist with a capital A because you had
yeah.
LAs, yeah.
Yeah. um, and I knew I wanted to like be a lit major. I knew what I wanted to do. I found a group of friends and I knew some of them since middle school. And then a couple that like I just had met like ninth or 10th grade. And we were just like this like core group of like besties who would hang out all the time. And it was like 11th, 12th grade, so like 2000, 2001, and where two of my friends decided to like start a blog like in the early days of doing this sort of thing, and they were amazing schemers and like so smart, and they like managed to get like what they would call like press passes and like these like legitimacies that like kids don't get. So we would go to, and I would be like their photographer, just kind of tag along in part of this scheme where they would go and interview bands and then write articles about them. And like they really did that, but it wasn't like anything major. It was like a blog that like six of us read. And they would get picked up in different like, indie web things, but it was so small. But they, in their minds, were like, we are Rolling Stone. Like, this is what's
Yeah,
happening.
that's so
So we
sick.
would, yeah, so we would just go backstage to like all of these bands. So we went and saw Thursday and like got to interview them when I was 17 years old, at a show at the House of Blues, and it was super cool. Um, so that was like my experience with the scene of like going to these shows and like always being the first in line, always being at the front of the stage, always getting behind stage for some of these bands. It was really cool. It was a cool experience.
That's awesome. What was the name of this blog?
Honestly, I don't even
Can't
remember. I don't
remember.
even think
That's
I knew then because it was that
didn't matter, right?
insignificant. It
Yeah.
was like, yeah,
Doesn't
it
matter.
was just a cool thing that my friends did that we got to tag along to do.
Just get back to college for 1 second. Just remember, I know at least 3 punk rockers who have doctorates. Right, so it's a part of the scene because you've got Milo
Yeah.
from the Descendants, Dexter from Offspring, and Greg from Bad Religion. And I was kind of curious. I kind of googled also Sterling Morrison from the Velvet Underground, who has his
Mm,
PhD in medieval literature.
that's amazing.
So, and of course, and he's not a punk rocker, but Brian May has a degree. He's a literal astrophysicist.
Hey, Blake from Jawbreaker at one point was teaching at the New School in New York City while he was getting his master's in like
So
some
yeah,
arcane literature. And when he was teaching classes, I'm like, how do I go take classes from this singer from Jawbreaker? That'd be crazy.
that'd be insane. That would be. I wonder what that class would be like. Would it be like super like all the lights are off, super low key? I don't know. Now I'm curious.
Well, I mean, I think on the end, like, I think also having followed Jeff Rickley on social media, like he is such a reader and such a book nerd. Like it's funny to like, I'm sure it would just be like any other English class. It just so happens that these teachers' day jobs happen to be the coolest day jobs there are. You know, it's like
Yeah.
I think Jeff would be a well, you Jeff and Jeff would be wonderful teachers.
Thank you. I mean, I'm doing. It's a big deal for me to talk about this because the JEFF versus the GEOFF rivalry of Jeffs is it runs deep. It's like the New Hampshire versus Vermont, you know,
I can feel it. Yeah, I can
battle.
feel
Yeah,
it. That is
they got
yeah.
they got
does it make you-
Chaucer, but we got I don't know who's Jeff.
Uh,
We have Jeff Goldblum. Ha!
they
They
got
have
Jeff.
Chaucer.
Ha!
We have Goldblum. There you go.
There
Well,
you
there
go.
you go. Does it visually make you mad when you see it spelled that way? Like, are you like inherently like, no, that's wrong?
No, I just think that it just seems unnecessary. I'm not even sure if I need the second F in my name. Like IJEFF it, but like, isn't one F enough?
See, because it's funny. I look at I'm Philip with 2 L's in it, not 1. And
No,
I
get
look
that
at the
L
one.
out of there.
Yeah, I get like, I know. I'm like, maybe why do I have an extra L? Because I don't know. I have an extra L.
I mean, this is all very important, but Catherine, how do you feel about Catherine's with a K?
Not, that's not the right way.
Right. So, you know, we all have our
Yeah.
we all have our
things.
stance.
The only
We do.
plus side to the other Jeff is I just remember the Toys R Us. Toys R Us Jeff. Wasn't it GEOFF?
He was
Oh,
that
that's
was
right.
Yeah.
yeah. So they had the trifecta: Jeff Rickley, Jeffrey the Giraffe, and Jeffrey Chaucer.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. All right. That's where we're going with. God, then tell me more about the scene for you. Besides, like what you were getting in, and you talking about in high school and all that. I want to know what bands were the big bands for you. You know, if you could make a Mount Rushmore, if you will, like of
hmm
a couple of bands up there on the hillside, what would you put there?
Yeah, I think for sure Thursday, obviously. One of my all-time favorites, maybe saw them like 8 times in the span of 2 years, was the International Noise Conspiracy.
Yeah.
Huge. The same time period, 2001. It's very huge for that. Thrice was a big one. And I would say, I don't know, there were so many like kind of lower rung things that I really liked. It's hard to just choose, but I think I'll go with, this is like not lower rung at all, super famous. I would go with At the Drive-In.
Oh, sick. Yeah.
Good choice. I just listened literally the other day to was it One Arm Scissor, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, I literally just listened to it the other day, and I was like, man, this was such a good song. Again, I think At the Drive-In is one of those bands that they should have been bigger than they are.
Yeah.
It's funny. I'd never seen At the Drive-In live, and I've never seen International Noise Conspiracy live. And
Two
I've
of like the best experiences of my
exactly.
entire life.
Well, that's where I mean, especially at the drive-in, people are like, if you didn't see them in that moment in time, like you have no idea. Like they were like, I mean, if you read Dan Ozzi's book, Sell Out, which
Sell Out.
we mentioned too many times in this podcast, he has a whole section on At the Drive-In, and
Hmm.
it was very eye-opening to me, and I really felt like I missed out not having gotten a chance to see them. But yeah, but it's interesting. All those bands, and we've covered Thrice before, and Thrice and Thursday are kind of locked together because they both signed with Island the same
Hmm.
time and both had their major label debuts come out in 2003, 20 years ago. So like also another band who has something serious to say about the
Hmm.
world. Also a band that's kind of heavier than some of the other bands. So all these, and that's kind of true for all the bands on your Mount Rushmore. They're all
All of
pretty
them.
intense, right? They all
Yeah.
have something to say.
Yeah.
They're not whining about a broken heart,
Not at all. Noise Conspiracy used to sell like part of their merch tables were like books by like Noam Chomsky and like these like arcane philosophers and all of these things that like they based all of their music from. It was really awesome. Um, that was like something that I would like literally get books that I'm like I still have to this day that I read and reference for just like life philosophy.
That's awesome.
Who is this?
Sorry.
Who is the second band? Like I missed, like at Thursday, Thrice, and At the Drive-In. But I totally spaced on the second one.
The International Noise Conspiracy.
Okay, thank you.
That's the singer from Refused, right? Like that
Yep.
was the band they did after Refused. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. That one I'm not as up on. So, but Refused.
Oh, I think you would love them.
Okay, because I know Refused, and I like Refused a whole bunch. So now I
Same.
will definitely have to go take a peek at that one.
Nice.
Well, yeah, as we said, we touched on 2001 is an interesting time. We have talked about before that 99 Enema of the State comes out, and kind of like to me is really when like the whole punk emo explosion kind of shifts, because there was obviously Green Day, Offspring was happening before that, and Blink kind of came in there towards like 97 with Dude Ranch, but it's for 99 Enema of the State became so big, it kind of like inspired, I think it opened up a lot of record companies to look for these scenes, these punk scenes around the country, and they discovered all these different things. And I think the funny thing about Finding Thursday is like, oh, this is not Blink-182. This is not like anything like that. This is a band who's very serious, which harkens back to like maybe even like a decade before. Yeah, so 91 is when Nirvana Nevermind comes out.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And
Christmas time, around Christmas time in 1991. It was the best-selling album during Christmas.
Yeah. So this is 10 years after that. We have Thursday. So it's interesting because I feel like it feels like Nirvana, the guys in Thursday probably listen to Nirvana. I know they listen to Nine Inch Nails. There's a Bandsplain episode with Jeff Rickley as the guest talking about Nine Inch Nails and his intense fan of them. And it's so interesting to hear that all that 90s alternative music, how it kind of coalesced into this. We also had a guest on recently. We did a Cure episode, which I think is going to come out before this one. But our guest had named this album as one of their favorite albums of all time, and what drew them to it when they saw it in the store, it said this generation's Joy Division, which I thought was interesting to make that connection. So, which also kind of fits to me in my mind.
Yeah.
So you get this album. First of all, if you want to, we can talk about the album cover real quick, and we'll talk about the title because I think they're both, one's more important than the other. What do you guys think about this album cover?
Go ahead, Kat. I'll let you go first.
Honestly, like I think in my like teenage brain, it like didn't register to me as like anything, and I don't know why. Like there are so many other album covers that like were meaningful to me, and this was not one of them.
Yeah, what do you think?
They're plain old white chairs.
Yeah.
They look leathery. So I'm not thinking it's not like plush or anything or velour. It looks leather. So I was trying to think, where would I see
Right.
white leather chairs like this, and I'm very hard pressed to figure out where that would be.
I just thought medical. I thought hospital, and then
Okay.
I thought we bring in the title full collapse. I
Okay.
was like, is this like a mental hospital basically, like a
Mm.
waiting room or waiting area to be like taken in or
Mm-hmm.
something like that? Because the title full collapse, is just such a powerful, striking title. Because what does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
What does a
Mm-hmm.
full collapse mean? And I think through the course of the album, I think we kind of put together what they might mean. But I don't know. What do you think when you hear that, Phil?
It's not a partial collapse. It's not a not a sort of collapse. No, this is a full collapse. It's a fantastic title. It's one might be one of my favorite titles ever for a record, just in general,
Oh
just
wow,
because it just fits the album so well. And bring it honestly, it's one of the ones that kind of ups the game of the album altogether. Just the title by itself.
Mm-hmm.
I had
I like
read.
your idea on the cover. I like the medicinal thing. I can see that. Yeah, okay.
That's
Yeah.
something.
I mean, there's like the metaphor of like again, the full collapse, but also like the literal read of like a car crash, what happens after in the aftermath of that. And like a lot of that is just waiting, like horrifyingly waiting in a hospital room to see what happened, like those types of feelings come up of like, this is like waiting rooms are not pleasant to be in
Yeah.
generally.
Yeah.
No, yeah. You don't know. It's Schrodinger's cat
Mm-hmm.
for someone's life potentially. Yeah. Um. We'll sprinkle this in a little bit, but like the band has in many different outlets talked about how unhappy they were with their relationship with the record label Victory Records. Victory Records before Thursday, to my knowledge, was really a hardcore label. They were out of Chicago. I mean, they had like straight edge hardcore bands like Earth Crisis, like they were like hardcore. And Thursday was clearly them looking at the landscape and saying, we need something, dare say, a little more melodic, a little bit more um, not screaming all the time. And then, as we mentioned earlier, then they go to Take It Back Sunday. They get Bayside. They get Hawthorne Heights. Like they start to really kind of like lean into the scene post Thursday. But Thursday is very unhappy. And then one of the things they said they were unhappy about was the album cover. They felt like they were rushed or didn't give enough time or money to do a proper cover that they wanted, which is interesting.
Did they say what they would have done differently?
I didn't read that part. They just, I guess, like this was kind of, they were never fully happy with it. But it's funny when when you said it's how I always looked at it. I never paid any attention except that it was white. I'm like,
Yeah.
no, it's just white album cover. Yeah.
I was like, yeah, white. There's some chairs. It's got a very nice blue color for the word Thursday. So I don't know. I kind of moved on. I never really gave much thought. But now that you say that with the waiting room, like that actually kind of fits even better with the point of the album. It's a lot of the feels of the album. A lot of folks waiting for something to happen, or waiting for the next thing to happen, or waiting, buying their time for until something ends.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
So
Phil, what's the name of Thursday's first album?
it's also called Waiting. That's also what it's
Yeah.
called.
So yeah.
So there's very thematic, this band. This is why you can't sleep on this band, and anybody who does, shame on them, because this Thursday is a band. I don't know why is not like the biggest band in the entire world. I just don't. I don't understand it. I think this band. Jeff, you said this album and the next album. I'm going to amend that. I'm going to say the album after the next one too. Like is a run.
City Lights.
Yeah,
Divided?
it's just
Yeah.
Light City, but it's just the city. And then War All the Time in this album. I think are three of the best albums that ever came out of this genre ever. And I even might go so far as like ever. Like that is a run of three albums that are it's astonishing what they put together. And I don't know why this band isn't the biggest thing in the entire world. They're that smart. I think they're that good. And yeah, here we are. I don't know.
Well, do you think it has something to do with just kind of like the pop music landscape? Because like it's interesting to me, and again, this is based on like interviews and things I heard. Like when Jeff produced the My Chem first album, Bullets, they were like, "Wow, you think our band will be as big as you?" And Jeff says like, you guys are gonna be way bigger than us." Like he could tell, like you know what I mean, like.
Yeah.
So like they just have that crossover appeal, just because maybe it is a little more poppy or a little catchier. I actually like know a lot of people who love punk and emo who tell me they don't like Thursday. I've heard this from multiple people, and
Really?
yeah, and the thing they always come back to is they don't like Jeff's voice.
Oh,
So it's that might be a polarizing thing, which is funny because like I remember even back in the day, like people would be like, oh, and Jeff himself has said this, like he'd get criticized for being like a little tone deaf,
Mm.
especially on this album. And then
Yeah.
he got a singing, obviously new album, next album, he sings a lot more and he gotten better over the time. But like I remember people in this album were saying like even saying that at the time, like, oh, I can't. But for me, I'm like, well, it's punk. No one can sing in punk.
No one
So it
can
wasn't
sing
yeah.
even
in
something
punk.
like crossed my mind.
It
I
didn't even
also think that
Good.
I was also gonna say, like, I think part of the draw of this, like, album for me anyway, is like, yes, the literary elements, but like combining that with like pure emotion. Like it
Yeah.
feels almost sometimes like wailing. Like there's something that draws me in, and like I'm a fan of Beyonce. Obviously, I love good singing, but like this is like there's something about the tone and like the way in which it sounds. It sounds so like raw and like earth shattering. Like it brings
Yeah.
in the like feeling of full collapse by hearing it. I think there's something special about that, but I also think I understand why that's not mainstream.
Yeah. No, I agree 100%. You feel the intense emotions that they are wanting us to feel through his voice and through the
Mhm.
chaotic nature of the music as well.
Yeah.
Because Tom DeLonge is a great singer. I mean, come on. I mean, come on. Like, let's be honest. Like, I
Wow.
mean,
Wow. Phil, you know what's gonna happen, Phil? You're gonna go walk out to your mailbox and you're gonna open it up and it's gonna be empty, and you're gonna say, where are you? All the angry letters all from the Tom DeLonge fans sending you angry mail.
like, it's just that's such a it's a lame argument. It's because
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
so lame because like look, uh, but that's what makes Tom great is the way he sings, and I think it's the same with Jeff. Nobody else sings like him. They don't sound like
Yeah.
him. I do like in the later, yeah. I mean, immediately the later records, he is singing better. I think there was some vocal lessons he went in there, but I, Kat, I'm gonna agree with you wholeheartedly. I love he sounds raw. It sounds like these were like one takes, right?
Hmm.
And that he gave every take everything he had every time. And it's I like how raw it sounds, which against a very almost polished sound behind him,
Hmm.
because the musicality of the band is they're not afraid to just basically just do a bass and a drum for a couple of beats. Like
Yeah.
they don't have guitars going the entire time, which is funny because that reminds me a lot of like Red Hot Chili Peppers does that a lot. They'll go with just a bass and a drum and not do guitars and points. And Thursday does that, and I think they do that really well. And then you get this amazing wailing. Wailing was a great word, Catherine. A wailing sound of Jeff coming in. Again, I'll never
I,
understand why this band isn't bigger.
this isn't during the full collapse era, but I do want to just bring it up because I saw him at Warped Tour. I think it was like it was one of the last Warped Tours I went to, so it was probably 2006, 2007-ish, around there. Um, he was playing for the Workforce Drowning, the first song on the next album, and that song comes in kind of like downbeat and he just goes into it. He smashed the microphone accidentally into his face and he just started bleeding. Didn't stop at all. Played the whole set as intense with like just blood pouring from his mouth. I'm just like, that's the most Thursday thing I've ever seen.
I feel like that's just gonna add. It's gonna add more to it.
Hmm.
Yeah, just like I was like, wow. But that wouldn't happen. The blood if he was a robot, would it?
No, it would not. It would not. I don't think robots bleed blood.
Well, not the robots I build, at least.
Yeah, at least not the ones I know of either. Maybe like
Yeah.
motor oil or some type of electronics. I don't know.
Of course,
A0. Oh, yeah.
A0001, the first track on Full Collapse.
3 lines. I think it's only 3 lines. 3 lines. We all look the same. We'll all look the same someday. And even now, the robot starts to think, I wonder what it dreams. First up, I
I
feel
mean,
like talk about Blade Runner really quick because, like, what is it? Androids dream of electric sleep or
yeah,
sheep. That's what it is. Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
So makes me think of that.
No, it definitely makes me think of that. It makes me think of OK Computer, the whole
Yeah.
sound of this. Like,
Yep.
I'm like, oh, these guys definitely listen to Radiohead, and they're like, Radiohead can do it. We can do it for 30 seconds.
It also makes me think of Jeff. You just said it for the workforce drowning, because one of the lines in that song is, "We keep making copies of copies of copies," and I feel like that's a theme through a lot of their writing. And he says, excuse me as I inappropriately burp. I'll edit that out. And where
That
he
black
says,
coffee you're drinking.
yeah, oh my goodness. We'll all look the same someday. I just feel like that's kind of, there's that a connective tissue that thrives through the band with that.
Well, it's funny. You mentioned Do Androids Dream of Electronic Sleep, the Philip K. Dick dystopian novel that becomes the Blade Runner films. I also think about my favorite Twilight Zone episode, which was number 12, Looks Just Like You. I don't know if you guys remember that one.
Was that the one where the person goes under the cosmetic surgery?
Yes. So
Yeah,
it's
okay.
the not too distant future where once you reach a certain age, like 16 or whatever, you get to choose one of two models that you can look like, and everyone looks like these two perfect humans, basically. So I don't know. It just feels like, oh yeah, like we would all start to look the same and think the same. But it's also interesting to me because it's talking about robots, and again, 2001, we're kind of like, this is like 2 years before MySpace or something. Like, you know what I mean? Like we're on the precipice of everybody kind of becoming connected to machines all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So
and with on our phones the entire time, which I
yeah.
actually think one of the later songs, I think he kind of was ahead of the curve on that. We'll get to that song.
Also, I would hate to not mention there was also a mathcore hardcore band, metalcore band from New Jersey, also on Eyeball Records around 2002, called The Number 12 Looks Just Like You, or Looks Like You. The Number 12 Looks Like You. Yeah. So named after the same Twilight Zone episode. Anyway,
I hope Twilight Zone is not a show that gets forgotten, because honestly, it's such a good show.
I think about that a lot because, like, do people now reference Black Mirror like I'm referencing old Twilight Zone episodes? I don't know, like do the kids today, like, is Black Mirror the?
I gotta finish Black Mirror. I'm like halfway through it. I have to finish it.
Not as much as we would think. I feel like Black Mirror caters to people like us who love Twilight Zone.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think it's what the kids are into.
I just
unfortunately.
Unfortunately, Twilight Zone is anybody out there want to learn how to write a story? Twilight Zone is a fantastic. Just pay attention how they pace things, and it will tell you how to write a story, how to set something up, and then how to have a great reveal. I mean, they were the best at. Rod Serling was the man. He knew exactly how to tell a story.
Also, if you don't want to go out on New Year's Eve, you can always find a Twilight Zone marathon to keep you company.
That was my favorite thing in New York. Was it WPIX would have it on the on New Year's Day. It was Twilight Zone marathon. It was the best.
And then I think Sci-Fi Channel took it over years ago, and they still do it. So
do they really? Good.
You were the antisocial type who don't want to be around people on New Year's Eve. Boy, do I have a night for you. You and Rod Serling. All right, so this opening track is a mood setter, right? Like it just kind of starts and kind of gets it's a little dreamy at times, and it's really not quite what the album's going to be, but
no, I honestly, I always joked around myself. It's just a setup so that for the snare drum that comes in. That's all.
That's it.
It's just like gonna a little bit like we're just kind of like, oh, you think that's what the album's gonna be about, and then it's like bam, bam, here comes the snare. Such a good opening to the next song.
Oh. Yeah, it's that opening double hit on the snare drum, and then just like then the sound hits you. It's like, this is the album. Not only is this the album, this song is called Understanding in a Car Crash. In the 22 years since this album came out, the legacy of Thursday is probably going to always come back to this song in some way. Like, it just feels like this was the breakout hit, and it continues to be the song. If they're going to play a Thursday song in emo night, it's probably going to be Understanding in a Car Crash. It's weird to me that they are distilled down to this, because there's so much more than this, but I understand. Even I've listened to this song millions of times in my life, but even sitting back down to listen to the album again, I'm like, is there anything that better sets the tone for this whole entire rest of this album and what you're about to experience listening to Thursday in general?
Yeah.
No. Did you know they usually play this song a 1-2 combination with The Other Side of the Crash?
No, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, that's apparently I just learned that for the show. It's not like I knew that one. I didn't know that one. I learned that one. That song is basically this song, but from the other perspective.
Oh,
Hence
there
the
you go.
other
Side
side
of
of the
the cross.
crash. And I was like, oh, look at that. And then that I had to go back and listen to that. So now I will always forever play this song and then secretly play that other song and then keep going with this album.
That's amazing. When My Chem had their big return show in 2019, where they just like had been on hiatus for like 7 years, decided to do a one-off show. They did it in LA. Thursday opened, which I always loved because it's like going back to your roots. Like you're gonna bring Thursday along. So Thursday had an opening set, and they only played all the bangers. But they started with this song, and I was like, oh, whenever they start with this song, I'm just like,
It has a built-in opening that
yeah,
everybody's going to
Mhm.
be right. Like once those two snares that they go off, you're like, all right, let's go. Because this song doesn't quit. This is a fast song the entire time. It's like there is no quitting in this song. There's no taking a break. There's no taking a moment until the very end. And I feel like it's very apt to the song because it's
yeah,
ultimately a song about a car crash,
Mhm.
specifically the death of his girlfriend, right?
yeah. I think so. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, the thing, like, again, coming back to the poetics of his lyrics, like, these songs feel so personal. So they feel like ripped from the diary kind of thing. I'm going to put these together and make a song out of it. But yeah, I
Mhm.
mean, this song is about a car accident, understanding a car crash, or like, as we were talking about earlier, just kind of like wrapping your head around this. I don't know, like Phil and Catherine, what do you think this song is about, and what kind of imagery does it do to create that feeling?
My understanding, especially like the lore of being 17 and wanting to understand everything about what I'm listening to, is that it is about a car crash, but my understanding of the story is that it was something that like he drove by on his way home and didn't find out until later that what he saw was his like girlfriend or best friend being killed in the car accident. And like that's what it was about, is seeing it and then being like, oh shit, that's somebody that I love. Um, which is like so dark and
Oh
intense.
yeah,
But I think that like absolutely comes through in the lyrics. It's absolutely kind of talking through about like literally like the things that happen in a car crash and then talking
yeah.
about like the time, like things that happen so quickly and then like the time of like the feeling of it lasting like forever. Um it, that is like the juxtaposition of that, of like actually like going through those pieces in the beginning of the song, like literally splintered piece of glass. um you're like hearing it in real time of something
Yeah,
that happens like so quickly, but then like understanding how it feels for the long run. And that part is like, I think that's like haunting.
yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And going a little bit, I think it's the first song. Obviously, it's well, technically it's the second song, but it is the one to introduce the concept of losing youth, like, and that
Hmm.
there's
Hmm.
a finality to things. It's talking about growing up very loosely, in
Hmm.
that sense, and but that theme is carried throughout the whole album. That we're not children anymore. That bad
Hmm.
things can happen to us, and they probably probably will. And you're not going to get through life, I guess, unscarred, unscathed. I mean, there's going to be things that happen all the time, because he even does a reference to Neil Young with the needle and the damage done, which is a song about being a drug addict, right? And that
Hmm.
ultimately there something kind of self-inflicted that is going to harm you in the end even bigger. So I think there's a connection to that, that there is a sense of life is going to kind of harm you because you don't know what's coming. I mean, it's but you have now understanding that you're now understanding in a car crash that life is can be short. Was it short, brutish, and hard is the thing I remember from college. But that's apt. I mean that there are things that just might not go well for some folks. That's a terrible thing.
Hmm.
I love the time. He even has a time in, like when the last time they talked, and that was the act was 12:03, and now the broken watch is just a compass back to
Hmm.
me thinking about this horrible event. That's terrible.
Hmm. Yeah, it's the constant reminder of, like, I think, to me, the needle and damage done line is exactly that. Like, the needle is, once you start doing the heroin, the damage is already done, and that's like the same thing with like growing up, right? Like,
Mhm.
and he even says, "I don't want to feel this way forever," in such like a desperate way that he like
Mm-hmm.
says over and over. And it's like, what if you don't want to feel like this way forever? But like you're going to, like, that's what life is. It's dealing
Yep.
with this pain. And the imagery of like a dead letter marked return to sender, like a message that will never make
So
it, because like,
yeah,
yeah,
and it's just such a sad thought to say that it's a dead letter return to sender. It's just, well, one, great line. But two, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
it's just, it's such a sad thought that this letter will never get delivered. I don't.
What about the choice that to have the first person point of view in the car at times? I always thought that was interesting, because like story wise, it's like this other person died in a car accident, but sometimes it feels like in the song that the narrator's in the car with the person
Mm-hmm.
and isn't like driving them to it. Like there's a
See,
guilt there.
yeah, I take that as, because the title, remember I say titles matter. Because the title is Understanding in a Car Crash. To me, I've always thought it was the narrator trying to put themselves into the
Yeah.
shoes of the person who just went through into the car crash,
Mm-hmm.
so that they can understand it.
Yeah.
Which is a very rational, to me, that's a very rational, logical way of trying to understand pain or understand remorse or sadness and grief, is to kind of work your way through what that person had gone through. But ultimately, I don't think that's a good idea. Because I don't, you walk, I don't know. You really want to know what they went through? I mean, that's just, I don't know. I don't know if I do.
Yeah. It seems like a natural way of like processing grief is like, what would that be like? And yeah, I think there is some guilt in that it's like people have when it's especially youth. It's like, why wasn't I that? That could happen to anybody. Um, it's sad. It's really
It's
sad.
very sad.
It's so sad.
I mean, that
Yeah.
line, "I crash my car every day the
Every
same
day the
way,"
same
like
way.
that means
Hmm.
every day he's going through it, like, over and
Like
over, right?
reliving it.
Reliving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, because we do have the watch as the a visual reminder, but maybe he drives on this road all the time and has to
Yeah.
drive by that spot every day. Every day. I mean, that would mess
Mhm.
me up. I'd probably learn a different way to go, and I wouldn't care if it took me 20 minutes out of the way. I would, no, sir, I'm not going that way anymore. Mm-mm.
Well, and then I think the other point is like, Bill, I think you said it with about the end of youth and time moving on. Like that's the chorus basically. It's like
Yeah.
time to let this pass, time it takes, and we scream it, time it takes, let go. Time runs through our veins. It's just we're constantly going through time and moving on. But the watch always says 12:03. So
1203.
time will
It,
never change from this, right?
no, I mean,
This
so
will
there's that spot that is done moving forward, but for the rest of us, we still move on. We still have to deal with this.
again taking what looking at this song is what Thursday does so well. They have these like, I don't know, like warring guitars sometimes that are just like, I don't know, they have such an interesting tone to them, and they're kind of like there's so much going on there on top of Jeff's desperate singing, on
Mhm.
top of the screams that are accentuating his screaming. Like when we get to the end of the song and it's like, I don't want to feel this way forever. Understanding in a car crash, like I scream over and over, in a crash, like, oh, it just that's what Thursday does so well sonically, is they take all of these pieces and just make you feel the pain that they're feeling.
Mhm.
Yes, they want you to know how they feel, and they get it both ways. I think lyrically and well, because it's a mishmash.
Yeah,
Lyrically, you hear the sadness, but also the anger of the
yeah.
Mhm.
situation, right? And you get that in the way the band plays, the musicality of the band.
Uh, I feel like it'd be a crime against humanity to not play "Understanding" in
It's
the car crash.
crime
So,
against humanity not to play this song.
so here you go, ladies and gentlemen, from Thursday's Full Collapse, the song "Understanding" in a Car Crash. The next track, track three, but song two, track three is "Concealer." You know, I was wondering if after a very intense song about losing someone you love in a car crash and reliving that feeling every day, they'd probably mellow out on the next song. Oh, no, no, no. No,
No,
no, no.
mm-mm. No, we're gonna go essentially talk about domestic abuse. Let's go do that. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
great. Let's
yeah.
just get right into it.
From the point of view of the person being uh, abused. So,
From the victim, yeah, it's from the victim. It's from the
yeah.
victim's perspective. Although I will wager that there's a slight positivity toward the end of the song.
Oh yeah.
Maybe, I don't know. I mean, but the whole song, you have the room explodes. Now there's blood in your hands, and there's no time for a second chance. Paint my face, blood and tears and cover up. So like, there's no often like, it makes me think that during this couple's life, there's constantly been fights and that have become very physical, where makeup's worn to cover up the bruises or whatnot. They talk about, and I think that's even referenced. You think it's getting smaller, the bruise, like right, I always imagine under the eye. Um, and I think there's slight positivity in this song because the abuser can't look at themselves because the picture is not taken down. They have to take the picture down because they can't look at themselves. But I think at the end, it won't be too long until you're gone into the night. You won't have time to paint my face with cover up. I feel like there's a chance that the victim knows this is going to end soon and is waiting. See, we're going to bring up the waiting word. Is waiting for it to happen. But I don't know what's going to happen, which bothers me because I would like this to have resolution. What do you think, Jeff?
Uh, yeah, I'm not so sure. I think it ends very well.
Okay.
I want to think about what you're saying, because when I get to the end of this song and we're going through it and they get to this place where we got to leave before the sun sets, or maybe we don't have time. It won't be long until you're gone at the night. You won't have time to paint my face or cover up. That could be they're making a run for it, or they're getting away, which is the positive. But the other part of me is like, did they not survive this last one?
That was my feeling. Is like this idea of like, if you wanted to change the way I look at you, like you won't have time. Like it, I'm not gonna, this whole thing is not gonna end well because you can't change how it looks because it's done. It's over.
Yeah.
We don't have to paint our faces again because it's over. Like yeah, it's a bit dire to me as well at the end.
See, this is what I love about the writing is like, you kind of goes a couple different ways. I mean,
Yeah.
the way you explain, like, all right, I can see that. It's this part here with sunsets, right? The sunset seems to be where he's at his worst. So it makes me think of like this kind of demony version of the person comes out at nighttime, which makes me think it has to be, I don't know, substance abuse that kind of sets them off. Usually you drink the alcohols and stuff in the nighttime, but you might not. Might be an afternoon drinker. Who knows? But that's what I think is rumbling. It remind what was it? Yeah, it was Sun Also Rises with Jake, where he had demons at night. He couldn't sleep. He was always okay during the day, but at night he got very he had to fight off the demons. I wonder if that's the same thing with the abuse, or they have nighttime stuff they have to deal with. But definitely not a good scene. Not painting a good picture here.
No, I mean, again, the evocative imagery that he uses is like the cadence beats down on the guitar. It sounds the same as your fists raining down. Like, yeah, this is not just someone getting punched once. Like, they're getting beaten.
Yeah, they're getting beaten. They're getting beaten. Yes. Not a pretty picture. No.
But even just like this idea to paint my face with blood and tears and cover up, like, I mean, the going back to the title, concealer. What we're talking about. We're actually trying to conceal blemishes on our face with makeup and everything, but like the blemishes are wounds and bruises.
Well, they might even be trying to conceal like how they feel about in the relationship, like and trying to like put a face on what is really a negative relationship, but they're going to try to put a face on it, make it seem positive.
Yeah, I think it is talking about like trying to hide or conceal like the actual like how things are feeling. An open book that no one reads, a misspelled word that no one knows. Like there's stuff going on that either people are ignoring or they're choosing to hide to like not have it be kind of like out in the world. There's definitely a hiding of all of these things that are happening.
Deeper song than you think. Every time you read, deeper song, deeper song.
Again, this is going back to the Thursday of it all, like the fact that this is their biggest album at this point. They're a small indie band. They're on Victory Records, which is going to get them out there. And their second song is they are, portraying the point of view of someone who's abused in a domestic partnership. Again, not a lot of bands in this scene are doing stuff like this, and it's also I'm thinking it back like to is it red jumpsuit apparatus. They have a song where they're basically like you push like basically yelling at the person who's hurting their partner, but it's like very like obvious. For this one, it's like it's a poem, right? You have to like dig through it to really pull out what's happening here. Because I actually remember being younger and hearing this song, and the song starts with this with fists raised high and tight. Being in the audience and just raising your fist high like you're at a punk show, not realizing what that raised fist is until you really start thinking about it.
And then you're like, oh. Well, Jeff, backing up what you just said, like hats off to Thursday. A couple of times in this album that they are being very progressive and talking about things that this scene in particular was not
talking about.
Not talking about, and it's actually actively calling them out, a lot of the times. That's what so out of the gate you can see like, wow, this is a very progressive band that wants to have some merit and some meat to their songs.
Well, and saying that, it's like they're not afraid to show the nation its real autobiography, are they?
No, they're not afraid. No, they will definitely put up a black mirror against. I'm gonna bring everything in it now. Against the nation, autobiography of a nation. That's a very heavy title.
There is. This is track 4 on the album. So we're coming after dealing with a loved one in a car crash, dealing with the pain of losing someone, to domestic abuse, to getting real about the nation.
Yeah, let's have a nice, honest conversation about American society and its cultural appropriation ability that it does all the time. What a fun, great song. Just lyrically, not just for what it is. I mean, it's the first one where where Jeff's going and they're screaming right next to it, and I feel like it's basically like a call and answer, almost like the entire song, which is cool. But yeah, we're not showing America in a great light right here.
Well, I also think that what makes this song so fantastic is also we've come off a couple intense songs, and the song opens in a very like slowing down, calmer way. It's like kind of a little shoegazy at times, a very slow bass and drum, and I mean, it kind of reminds Cure a little bit. This opening, it has this kind of like, so you're like, oh, okay, so maybe we're gonna dial down the intensity a bit here, and then the lyrics start, and it comes out in this like ferocious howl, right? Write these words back down. Yeah.
I mean, and then you get the band comes in with the other half of the line. It's just, and then so the whole time we're gonna America just steals what was it, and everything they say we steal. We adopt their customs, and we take them as our own. We dance to the same beat when we're marching. That last part down toward the end, I think, is a great explanation of America, which is really funny because again, they kind of called something that we're dealing with now, which is nationalism, and really what it is. And these words, we all dance to the same beat when we're marching. The TV tells us everything we need. The scene is painted in all the fashions of the moment, and history is all the same. We're dealing with this now.
Yeah.
Like big time. Now, big time. And he's talking about this 23 years ago, 22 years ago.
Yeah.
He sees something. I want to saw something I missed.
Again, this is and pre 9/11. Like, we're nationalism like gets a big boost in the pants after 9/11, right? Like, that's the only time in my life I remember like American flags like everywhere. Like, and now seeing a lot of American flags makes people have different feelings.
We have different feelings now. Catherine, what do you think of the song?
I mean, it is saying all the things that people don't say, which again, in this time period and in this era, I really appreciated. I think in some ways, like part of this to me is reminiscent of, and I don't know if this is just my own connection, it is almost like an answer to that Refuse song, New Noise. It's like that was
Mhm.
like trying to come up with like what is the new beat. We dance to the new rhythm, we do all this new stuff. And this is like, nah, we can't. Like in America, we don't do that. We
Mm.
Yeah.
steal and we don't have a new anything. We just take. Um, I like to kind of like think about those two, you know, somebody from international like perspective and somebody from an American perspective. It's like we erased everything and replaced them with borders. We don't have new things. Um, interesting and dark, and it is real.
Yeah. I'm always struck by this one part where at the top of this timeline, you'll remember this is the lipstick on the collar. And in my own life, I've seen it in the mirror, sometimes at the cost of others' hopes. Like we're guilty of like we're all guilty
Mm-hmm.
of it. Even
Mm-hmm.
someone who's like looking at it, like you feel like you're having an affair because you're having this good life and you look in the mirror, but like the only reason you're here looking in the mirror is because of all the damage and destruction and murder done to
Yeah.
so many other people to
Yeah.
give you this opportunity. So we're all complicit.
Do you think the phrase "write these words back down inside" is about like American indoctrination? You know, like indoctrinating people into this is how we think, right? Like put them down inside of you. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're thinking about the metaphor of like we're all complicit, it's like how does society control? Like how does society like we all have these like notions as a society, this idea of like capitalism, all of these things that are told to us and these beliefs of like branding, you want more, you like excess, like all of those things is innate within us. Because of just imprinting in society. It's our advertising, it's our television shows. We always
Mhm.
want, you know, the cool thing next door. It's like all that like 50s propaganda that existed, keeping up with the Joneses, that sort of thing.
I mean, yeah, and then that line, yeah, the TV tells us everything we need to know, and this scene is
Uh-huh.
painting in all the fashions on the moment, and history is all the same. Like we are just being, I don't know, mind washed, brainwashed. That's the word,
Brainwashed,
brainwashed.
brainwashed.
Yeah, to
Hmm.
not see the horrors that we've inflicted on others,
Hmm.
and the erasure of that, which the erasure will come back in a later song, a song down a little later in the album, which is because this microscope's going to move from just the country and how we came together and what all the atrocities had to happen to build this country as it is, and then we're going to look at a a, uh, a subculture that's being erased that they're going to talk about later. Yeah, I mean,
I
what
will
do you
say
say
this.
though?
I think it's joking around again. I love to talk about titles. The song is not called a biography of a nation. It is
Right.
the
Hmm.
autobiography of a
Yep.
nation, which means we are the ones writing it.
Yep.
Just putting that out there for title fans. Like that matters. The fact it's not a biography, not looking at it. No, this is what we are writing. We are writing this story, guys. This is
Yeah.
our story as it's happening. And it's a call to arms. Like don't buy in to
Yeah.
the right. You know, don't be like them. Don't listen and have the TV tell you everything you should think. Like
Hmm.
think for yourself. It's a call to arms.
Yeah. It's really just disrupting this concept of the American dream. It's like the dream you dreamt you bought. Like that's all it is. You didn't pull yourself up from your bootstraps or whatever
Exactly.
this kind of like
Right.
concept
Yeah.
is you paid
Yeah.
for it. You paid for it in blood, you paid for it with money, you paid for it with capitalism, whatever it is, you paid for it.
Yeah. The last two lines, everything you say, you stole. Every dream you bought. Like,
You bought. Hmm.
yeah. Well, I feel like everyone needs to hear this song.
Yeah. Let's play that one.
All right.
Yes.
Here is off Thursday's Full Collapse, autobiography of a nation. All right. Track 5 is called A Hole in the World.
One of my favorite episodes of Angel shares a title.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Angel, season 5, episode 15, where spoiler alert. I know it was like 20 years ago, guys, so everybody be ready. But Fred dies, Fred gets killed and comes back as a god
Yes.
Illyria.
Oh
Yeah.
And
yeah.
like, yeah, and so I always love that episode because and ultimately Angel decides not to get the godlike thing out of Fred because by doing so would kill like most of North America. Really great album. Well, no, this is a song, but really great song, really great episode.
This has
Ironic.
been your
It also comes the episode right after, if I remember right, the one where what's her name died. It's right, the one that precedes it.
Cordelia?
Yeah,
No, yeah. It's
yeah.
been a while
They
since
go.
I watched Angel. Yeah,
I'm a big. I love Angel.
yeah,
I love Angel seasons 2 through 5.
right.
I don't think I need the first one.
It hadn't found itself yet. Hadn't
Yeah,
figured out what it was yet.
it gets its legs in the second season. That is true. Anyway, let's
Well,
talk about
this starts
Hole in the World by
with a
Thursday.
heck of
Yes.
a guitar riff.
Yeah.
Starts with a very bright guitar riff. Like we're coming off all these intense songs, and all of a sudden it's like a little brighter to start.
Yeah. It's like, oh, maybe this one won't be so bad. Maybe it won't be so tense.
Yeah. Well, no, not for long.
No. It's not. What do you ultimately, Jeff? What do you think this song's about?
This is
This is a tough nut to crack, I think.
It is, but I don't hold it against it because it's definitely giving me like feelings. Like I think it's kind of like it's like not giving up when things are at their bleakest. There's a lot of like, especially there's this whole metaphor about like developing a photo in like the dark room and like adjust the aperture to focus on the negative and like dodging faces in the corner of the frame by frame, the hole's opening and we fall in. I don't know. It feels like you have to look closer because even if there feels like there is no love there, it ends with this love is love is love. There's no such thing as a whole. Like whatever love you can find, hold on to. That's kind of how I took it from.
Yeah, I think it's their attempt at a love song in the landscape of everything else that they've been talking about. That like the world is hard and horrible, and the state of things in America sucks. The world is crashing down, but there is some like light at the end of the tunnel that like just that they have each other. It's like this idea of I can't see without you, like in the dark, that there is some hope leak, but it's kind of nice.
Yeah. We fell in the hole that opened up, giving up on love, living without love, giving up on hope, living without love. We still type black lines when the world is crashing down. These notes will fold themselves. Like still trying to set out the message, still not ever giving up on finding this love, even if it seems like it's bleak.
Yeah.
Right. There's still a chance out there for. I think the camera thing is an interesting mechanism to kind of get that across, because I always kind of wondered a little bit if like, is this a love song about how we, because I have to look at it now, and I don't know if Jeff was just that advanced, but like we love our phones, you know, and we love technology and we love all of that. And I wonder, like, is it just that far ahead? Like, it's a love song about like, I don't know, phones and computers and being on them all the time. I mean, the album opens with a computer, wondering if computers dream. So now I'm starting to wonder. I don't know. Because it makes me think like that the hole in the world is the camera lens, right? Taking in all the thing and the picture that we live behind the camera. So like we never actually enjoy anything, right? We're always the one kind of taking the picture, not really in the moment. You're kind of behind the scenes. I don't know.
Again, it's interesting because I think on this album there's these songs that are like very specifically about these call to actions and the things that they want people like think about, and then there's also kind of like these more poetic emotive songs like this one, which and I think they all work so well with the desperation in Jeff's singing paired with the screaming, because we didn't talk about this earlier, but like when I think about a lot of screamo bands, sometimes I think that like they're just screaming because they're a screamo band, not because like it's accentuating an idea or something. Where Thursday, I always feel like the screams are used so purposefully, to adjust how you're feeling in the moment, as opposed to like, you know, I don't know. And that's like whatever. Like what's that band? Till the Day I Die.
The Story of the Year.
Story of the Year. Like I always feel like I like that song. Don't get me wrong, but it was like I feel like we're screaming because that's the style of the time, instead of For Thursday, I'm like, oh no, screaming has a purpose.
I was going to use that word, purposeful screaming. We're actually going to use it to where it make a instrument out of it.
You know, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was saying, you go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to cross out the eyes.
I'm drawing a line right across them. Cross out the eyes. Let's call. I love the opening of this with let's call this a quiet city. It is not a quiet city. There's a lot of stuff going on. It just like this is a pretending that maybe things aren't so bad. There's like a follow up to Concealer, I guess, that, you know, we're gonna put a It's the phrase "lipstick on a pig." I think that's what I've heard before. It just let's call it a quiet city where screams are felt as the waves of the stoplights. So often, because stoplights
Yeah.
they change,
Mhm.
every few seconds or so, and you got screams that drive through the city, the streets.
Yeah, so this is track 6,
Track
Cross Out the
6.
Eyes. This is the second single off the album. The first single was Understanding the Car Crash. They had a video for that. This one also has a video. I don't know if you have looked at this video in 20 something years. I watched it today.
How,
I remembered the live band part, which is them in like a white, like just like a white stage, sound stage or something like that, and they're
yeah.
all in black and it just very much doing their Thursday thing. But then there's like this really like weird like sci-fi story that's going on with this guy who's like almost dead. Well, no, there's two people throwing a body in a dumpster,
Oh,
and then they leave, and then the two children find this body who's getting out of the garbage wrapping. He's got like all these burn stuff on him. They start peeling off all this stuff, and then he's taken and he's in a room with a bunch of people who are all kind of tied up on their wrists and their face with like white cloths, and like they're all there, and he's like almost like brain dead. And he's just staying there, and then he's like bought by this woman who takes him home and like kisses him on the cheek on the drive home, and he's kind of comatose. Very strange.
Why
Anyway,
don't I remember this at all?
I don't know. I didn't. I was
Any of
like,
it.
why don't I remember any of this? Anyway, I highly recommend the music video for "Cross Out the Eyes" on your YouTube.
It sounds like a Twilight Zone episode. I wonder what
Yeah,
the big twist is at the end.
I don't know. It was just again, Understanding Car Crash is just a live Thursday show, but this one is
They went.
something to behold.
That's it. Yeah.
Also,
First
the
time,
last song on the first side, Phil, of
last song on the first side.
the
So
album,
this is how we're gonna close out the album.
first half of the album.
First half of the album, and we get two references to the Thursday dove, which I don't think actually has any significance, but at least I don't think it does. Other than the fact it's cool, really cool.
Is
Logo.
this where the Dove logo came from? This song? I feel like
I think so, but you don't have the dove yet. The dove is on the next album. I think.
right, but I wonder if this is where they talk to the Dove a couple times in this song, and then that became kind of their de facto logo.
Yeah, because then the morning dove gets caught in the telephone wire. I love that he yells it like because it's like such a that matters that it got caught in the telephone wire. And then later on, he talks about the dove again, where I'm missing out. But yeah, so the dove comes up 2-3 times, I think. 2 times.
What does a dove represent in literature, Phil? Or in
I
anything
think
in life, symbolism?
usually like innocence.
I think it's peace, right?
Peace.
Peace, something
Yeah.
good. Yeah,
Yeah.
peace. Let's do that. Yeah.
So if your peace symbol is caught in telephone wires, things aren't going too well.
I don't think things are going too well. No. So we're gonna cross out the song's also has a timeline to it, which I think is kind of an interesting thing. It's from July. We go from July all the way to winter, so we go from like the summer to the winter. And sadly, we don't go back to summer. So like, I guess we're gonna end it in the winter time.
You just want to jump ahead and stand on the edge of summer is what you want, but
we'll
get there.
We'll get there. No, we'll get there.
No, but I think it's funny. Like this is to me is a very like we're like on this one of the best Thursday songs is Jet Black New Year, which also has a countdown of time for a New Year's countdown, but this is months, right? So they're already kind of using this like Thursday trick of like taking us through time, as you just said, which I really like.
I really think Jeff Rickley is definitely studied Shakespeare in his time, in his youth. Like all of these metaphors, the winter, summer, time, youth, like all of it kind of wraps up the theme of like growing up and aging and what does it all mean, and it's very reminiscent of all of those sonnets I studied.
Oh yeah, he was definitely studying these sonnets as well. I put him to good use.
Yeah.
Do you think this is a positive song or negative song, or do you think it's impossible to have just a straight positive, just straight negative song with this band?
I think that yes, it is a positive song in the Thursday sense, because
fair.
I think overall, because again, this is one where I'm like, oh, I don't know what the story necessarily is of this song, but the feeling I'm getting out of it is like you need to like break free of these things that are holding you back, basically. Like he talks about this violent city and like this place where you're living, but you have to get out. You have to when we get to like the chorus, we are talking about cross out the lines, tear the canvas from the wall. Like you're working on this painting, but like you don't have to be. Like you can like you can destroy and start over and do something
Right.
better.
Because I find that the We Can Rise on the wings of the dove. Maybe that's
Yeah.
why the logo is there. Because we can see blue skies getting caught in the trail of the smoke, so kind of rising above the smoke. You can see blue skies. We can rise like candles in the dark. Yours always, in an envelope marked with your new address,
Mm-hmm.
not your old one, but your new one, right? So we're going somewhere different. But that's like baked in the middle of this pie. It's in the song. It's in the middle of the song. It's not at
Yeah.
the end, you know. So it's like with Thursday, it's like you gotta. It's like a balancing act between positive stuff and negative stuff because like a lot of it seems like because I feel like crossing out the I sounds very negative,
Yeah.
just in emotion, right? It's just very like very dismissive.
Well, also
And then
how you sing that part too. It's not
right,
like a cross out the eyes. No, it's
no,
like
it's a very aggressive sound. They're like
yeah.
we, I am emphatically going to cross out the I's here, and with gusto and vigor. But in the middle of the song, you can rise above. I mean, it's just I always found it kind of an odd place to put like the positive note in this song. But I trust Jeff and his process, so I'm sure there was a reason. He talked about how this song is supposed to be about obliterating the me mentality.
Oh, interesting. Oh, destroying the ego and just being more part of the community.
Right. Which is why, because I think that's why that line "we can rise" had more has more merit there. That it is something, you know, even though it says our fence was blown down in the winter storm in this field, stretches out this world to the sound. How can we do to put oof, what can we do to put a stop to the coming white days? So like, well, one, you can't stop winter. Winter is coming, but at least they're trying. Like they're looking to think, well, how can we work together towards something better? So maybe it is a more positive song than I think. Maybe it's not so buried, but definitely more
The
about community, not competition.
yeah. Well, the bridge does feel like it's like the challenge, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like it was the first time face to face. I'm crossing the line, talking the other side of death, hearing the words that choke memories into flat lines, which that line, which then gets screamed over and over again, is just like that line I could spend a day thinking about.
Yeah.
I'm calling your name, hoping for something to wash these dreams of you away. Like to me, that whole thing is like the moment of standing up to it, right? And what that will bring, because it's not gonna be easy. You basically have to die to get to the other side, almost.
Right. But it's like trying not to slip away, like trying not to like let go of something, like the hope that exists somewhere, and just completely let darkness wash over you.
Not an easy thing to. This is another hard song to kind of get your head around.
But I think the challenge is what makes it interesting too, because like again, we're talking about this in a very close, in-depth like literature reading the lyrics, but you hear this song, it's like if I'm gonna play someone a Thursday song, I'm probably gonna play them this song because this really captures what this band does so well. And it's, I mean, you feel like at the end of this song, like how can you do anything else after this? You've just given it all. It's like it like does and the scream at the end, the way it like kind of like breaks down with like stretches out of this world and like the music drops out and it's just like this breaking down scream.
And most of the song, I don't even think it's not like a very heavy distorted song either.
No.
Which it opens up with this the drum beat and then it gets into the song. It's not a very distorted heavy. It doesn't sound like Thrice, right?
No.
I mean, it's not this like heavy thick bass line. So no, it's kind of a take away the lyrics. It's kind of a sort of an upbeat kind of song. And then
it's probably one of their catchier songs on the first couple albums.
Yeah,
for sure.
And there's a juxtaposition of the I just like that word juxtaposition, but between the lyrics and the way it sounds lyrically and the way the song sounds. Was it a thing? Is it a thing? Do you know? I remember hearing that Thursday early in their career, the band would go write music, Jeff would go write lyrics, and then they kind of meet in the middle and they'd play to him the song they have, and he'd go find what lyrics work best with that song. Was that a thing? Or maybe making that up?
I don't know. It sounds good to me.
Sounds good to me. All right, Revisionist theory. I'm going to say that's how it happened. I don't think it happened, but I'm going to say it did. That's what I'm going with.
Well, here's something I can say for sure. Let's play Cross Out the Eyes.
Absolutely.
All right, here it is. Cross Out the Eyes. All right, we are now moving on to track 7, second B-side of the album, in theory, if you're listening on vinyl at home.
Yep.
Phil, do you have this album on vinyl?
Actually, I don't. I remember when it got. I don't have this one on vinyl. The last time it was. Is that the Kraft one? The
No,
Kraft recordings.
This is just a plain Victory Records one.
Oh wow! So you're going back because the last one I saw was the Kraft recordings one, and they stretched this album onto like 4 records.
Wow!
And it's just like, so what is there like 2 songs each side? I don't know. That's a lot of flipping, and I don't feel like doing that.
I get it. The next track is called Paris in Flames. When I heard this song over 2 decades ago, I always thought it was about Paris.
Me too.
Hadn't really made the connection that it's actually about New York. And also because I had never seen at the time the 1990 documentary Paris is Burning, which is very important to this song. Have you guys seen it?
I haven't. I've now written it down. Like, I'm going to have to go watch this now.
It's incredible. Catherine, we can talk about it real quickly, but like it's basically a doc following all the performers in these drag balls in like the late 80s of New York City, Lower East Side area. There was actually a drag ball called Paris is Burning, I think was where the title came from.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a documentary focusing on drag queens living in New York City and their house culture, which provided a sense of community and support for the flamboyant, often socially shunned performers. Groups from each house complete an elaborate balls to take cues from the world of fashion. And they also touch on issues of racism and poverty. And the film itself is interviews with all these renowned drag queens of the time. But yeah, it's really looking at in New York the African American, Latino, gay, and transgender communities involved in this really huge celebrations. It's incredible. And this song, I feel like it taking the title, it's a jump because it's Paris in Flames, not Paris is Burning, but it is a direct reference to that. And then that is kind of like, I think that to me, the song is really like talking about, especially in the early 2000s New York, when they were trying to like gentrify all of Manhattan, kind of erase this history from the city.
And ultimately, I think that's what it's about. It's just about erasing an underground subculture that those at the top don't like its existence, and then replacing it with really nice, cute coffee shops in the Lower East Side or whatnot. The gentrification, right, Jeff? Just like you said. I mean, but it's getting at what expense? Because there's a lot of, I feel like there's a lot of money in this song. I don't know why. Like, business is referenced a lot, so I feel like there's a lot of industry in here, and it's like a song. First off, again, hats off to Thursday for talking about LGBTQ and trans the rights in 2000. Like, again, we're still dealing with this. Sadly, we're still dealing with this 20 years later. I don't understand. I don't understand. And I don't think I can, because I don't, you can't fix stupid, I guess. But what the song's about is actively trying to remove something you don't like.
Yeah.
Just because you don't like it. You know, these people you hate me for being born this way, or for being this way. They're born this way. This is who they are, man. And you have a problem with that? I love that Thursday is taking them on in this song. It's amazing that this song even exists now, but that existed back then too.
Yeah. Well, then, and then it's like calling out these businessmen who are going to hang themselves eventually. You still won't let go of your old ideals. There is no headline read at night. When the record skips, you're not holding the needle. Like, trying to be like, you're lashing out because you don't feel like you're in control. Like I love that metaphor there. Yeah.
That's the reaction is right now. That's why the folks are acting the way they are, because they're not. They feel like they're not in control of something that they feel like, for whatever reason, they need to be in control of it. Why they have that need, I don't know. but he shouldn't, because honestly, from what you explained to me about Paris is Burning, it sounds like a fun movie to watch about celebrating
Well,
who we are and our differences a little bit.
I mean, it's fun, but you're definitely going to see some hardship stories in there too. It's
Yeah,
like it's a really like uh raw look at the lives of different people in that time.
Hmm.
But it's an amazing documentary.
Yeah. I think a modern equivalent would be like Pose, like something like that, where you can kind of
Yeah,
see those stories play out. But it is both fun and sad.
yeah. Um, Also in this song we get the spoken word part, which
right.
interesting that like it's only this song because it's so effective.
Hmm.
I'm actually like glad it didn't become a crutch of his to do this over and over again. Because like when it happens in this song, it's like you just kind of like lock in. You're like, what? Because it's so evocative what he's saying.
Hmm. Hmm.
This here in this collapsed lung of a burrow, there is no sunlight. The sunlight is manufactured in a windowless room, distant and incoherent. Businessmen hang themselves.
Do you think he's getting to the point where like that this subculture, this underground culture or whatever, can't be removed? Like that they're gonna rise up against him, or just it's not something you can remove. Is that what you think? What one of the point is of the song?
I think so because I think he's basically, to me, it's kind of saying that this other society that you're trying to maintain is what's going to lead to people to hang themselves. Sunlight's manufactured. Like what you're creating is not real. It's not life as it's supposed to be. So by like erasing this and not allowing this to be, you're 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 creating a I don't know, like a fake version of life that you can't
Right.
survive in.
A revisionist one.
Yeah,
I mean, it's an unsustainable thing they're trying to create on the backs of something that actually seemed kind of sustainable. With because that they're for being born being this way. That's I don't know. Very complex song.
yeah.
Yeah. I think it is bringing back this idea as well as like the collective, the we versus the ego, um, and talking about like what does it mean, like having a collective like this like drag ballroom scene where they protect each other, they support each
Hmm.
other, and people trying to take it away. It's a collapsed lung in a burrow. Like it's taking away something that is like thriving. Um, and what does that mean? It's so alarming to people who are so set on status quo that they want to hang themselves. Um, but I love how it ends, that they're just throw this bottle back into the ocean, rip this page from the history book, smash all the street signs. Like we're just gonna tear it all up. Like
Yeah. I mean, well, that ending too, because this is the spoken word goes on.
mm-hmm,
I mean, he comes out and says the Lower East Side is a jukebox playing the Dead Man's Crescendo.
mm-hmm,
Like, yeah, the songs are saying it's over, but like, it's never going to end. It's going to rain. It's going to keep this idea of raining, the rain down. Like, you can't stop it. Like, this is reality. This is who people are. Like, you can't. I don't know. You can't. I'm missing like the target of exactly what I want to say about this, but I feel like it's like
You,
maybe you have
you,
the
can't
word for it.
you,
Yeah.
you can't erase people.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't because they're always going to be more. Um, and you can't just because you don't like something doesn't mean you get to try to eradicate it from
right.
its existence.
And yeah, you can't erase movements or ideas or these things that exist. Uh, and they want to, but you can't.
Right.
Well, and the other flip side of it is, but also you can't erase what has happened, right? And
Yeah.
you have to, you can't shy away from that, which is why
Mm-hmm.
the history book thing always kind of throws me off because I'm like, well, no, we also can't forget what has happened, so we can learn from it and not repeat it.
Mm-hmm.
What about this? Like the chorus, like we all sing these songs of separation, and we watch our lives bleed out through our hands. That's how it was on the
Yeah.
first day we saw Paris in flames. It's like I don't know.
It
To me, go ahead, Phil.
it kind of harkens back to the autobiography of a nation that like this is stuff that we listen rinse, repeat,
Hmm.
kind of thing. That like the more we sing songs of separation, like so we're not equal. It's very anti what I think is supposed to be the crux of America, which is supposed to be, from many one, we started off as it's supposed to be a melting pot of different nationalities all come together and
All
being
lives created equal, right?
all
Yeah.
yeah, we're all equal. We're all and it's another song showing how we're very much not what we think we are. Right? We think we're
Mhm.
supposed to be an inclusive group and we're great. We're a country where you play stuff by your bootstraps. I mean, but it's weird
Yeah,
that we are this great. We're the best, and we're showing you we're not, and
right.
acknowledging that does not mean we're not. We can't be great. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it's looking at the foundations of everything. It's like whether we have this like thing in our declaration that talks about the we and the us. Capitalism is inherently I over we. Like it just is.
Yeah,
And it's never not going to be that.
I think we should play this song.
I'm okay with that. Let's go. Let's play this one.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen at home, here is Paris in Flames. Track 8, I Am the Killer.
I am not the killer.
Well, that's what the narrator thinks at the beginning of the song, at least.
Yeah, that is. Yeah. Tuesday wakes up silent and there aren't enough pills to sleep. What is this song about? Who wants to warn, I guess?
I thought it was kind of like a little bit of struggling with your identity,
Mm-hmm.
about who you have this ideal of who you think you are,
Mhm.
and then you try to run from who you really are, but like in the end you realize you can't run from who you are, and you have to kind of come to terms with what you are.
I saw that, but I think I went a little more extreme. I feel like it's a song about the cycle of abuse.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Because like you start off, I'm not the killer, then like you kind of go, like you just said, you are trying to run away from that, and eventually you come to the point where you're like, okay, well maybe I am. Because it's a loss of identity. He talks about that loss of identity, this trade, and then I actually, when the phrase this trade, maybe then think about maybe it's about the music industry.
Mm.
And now I'm going to settle on that. I think that's a better idea. It's a part of the like 'cause now you're becoming a part of the industry you don't necessarily like.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Dear Jeff, please explain. Love Phil from New Hampshire. I mean, it's just, I just, it's a very complex song. I mean, let's talk
Yeah.
about nightmare. When you live in a nightmare, it's written all over. See, that made me think of the physical abuse. When you live in a nightmare, it's written all over your face. Like I've seen people, like you look, I've seen people walking around shops, stores like that, buses, subways, and you look at their face, you're like, you have had a hard life, and I can see it in your face, and just the way you stand, and just so this makes me always wonder about is it them? Like if you've had a really hard life, you try to get out of it or get out of having the difficulties in any way. Like I was thinking about the concealer. Like maybe this is something about the victim in that. No, the other person, the abuser. Like maybe they tried to be better and they realized that they can't be. I don't know. Complex song.
Yeah. I kind of like your theory about it being about music industry or just where he is in this life of his struggling with like these overarching large views of like America, the world, the way things are run. Um, Almost wondering like if it is about music, it's like you kind of have to decide, are you going to continue to stand your ground and hold your values and your understandings and your truths, or do you want to break into an industry that you would kind of have to let go of yourself a little bit in?
Mhm.
And if you want to do well, you kind of have to be in line with the things that you don't want to be in line with. You have to sell records and you have to be somebody else to a degree.
Mm-hmm.
um and I think it's interesting. Like I think like when paper scraps were all the same, it's like everybody's just trying to write, everybody's just trying to make it, everybody's trying to do these same things. What makes you different? Um, and it's yeah, like who do you want to be in all of that?
And you can't change the letters once the ink dries. So like once you've signed that contract, so now I'm thinking now I'm really gonna push this one forward. Once
Mm-hmm.
you sign that contract, bro, that's the contract. Now this is it.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
and then the next part, I woke up on the sidewalk and everything just changed. So they
Mhm.
became a small band to a bigger band. Now the lights are blinking, but I can't see anything. Like you're blinded so much by the lights, and the stardom that might come with going on to a record deal
Mhm.
and being a part of the glitzy industry.
Right. And no one to trust. No one to trust. Like who's looking out for you? You've become the commodity that you don't like in the world.
Well, then also on that and in the chorus, and in the short time you're never the same again. The distance is streamlined between decision and defense. Like we have to make these decisions, but you need to protect your integrity as an artist.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
But that's all it is. It's like it's commercialism and art, right? Like, and
Mhm.
you have to like kind of be in the both of them, and the distance is streamlined, so they're on top of each other.
Mhm.
So I think, yeah, Phil, I'm really feeling it now. I'm feeling like, which again is also prescient because this is them going to a bigger indie label,
Yeah.
but their next album is them going to a major. And, again, if you read Sell Out by Dan Oz, you can hear all about the war all the time. And like when they signed to Island, like they were told, like, you're going to be the biggest band in the world. You're going to be the next Nirvana, like all this stuff. But like he's already seeing that on this level.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
So it probably got even more amplified there. But yeah, and I think the other part is that, I mean, when you listen to this song, I think it's an incredible song musically. But when you get to that bridge and it all breaks down and it's just Jeff repeating everything's falling apart, and like that's where like you've lost control, right? There's
Mhm.
nothing you can do. Like you I'm not a killer. I'm not a sellout pop star.
Mhm.
But we're all the same and we're all going to be sellout pop stars. Everything's falling apart. We can't not do this.
Mhm.
I'd say this was a song 20 years ago I always skipped. I was always like, yeah, it's all right. Always was like, yeah, it's okay. And now the older I get, I'm like, listen to it again. I was like, wow, this is a better song than I thought.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie. Not gonna lie. This was a song I was always like, yeah, it's all right. Much deeper than you think, this song.
Yeah, I don't think they don't really phone it in with depth in their songs.
Right.
No, no, they're not like, no, they definitely are. They're always trying to be. They're a band that wants to be of some merit, of some worth, and say something. Have some substance.
Well, you could be the killer, but you could also be a killer standing on the edge of summer, Phil.
Standing on the edge of summer.
Yeah, that's the next song.
That's the next song. Standing. What a emo-y title.
I mean, this is the emo song on the album, I think.
It's such an emo song. It is such an emo song. And I think I think it's the most on the nose song. It's about growing up, right? Isn't it? Right?
Yeah,
About growing. Yeah,
yeah.
it's about growing up. But you're on the edge of summer, which would imply you can fall off, or you're gonna go into fall. Fall off. Didn't do that on purpose, guys, but I'll take it. But it's like you're playing with seasons again, which he's done earlier in the album as well.
After this album, the next year, Thursday will release an EP called Five Stories Falling, which is four of these songs live, recorded on Warped Tour that year, and then one extra bonus new song. Um, on that recording, they actually have Jeff intro in this song, and he says, "It's about the last time I went to visit my grandmother in Columbus, and I saw that she was dying. It was the last time I was going to see her. It's about realizing how young you are, but how quickly you can go."
Yep.
So growing up, yes, but not just growing up. Like,
Not just no realizing that there's a finality to
yes,
everything,
yeah,
and
Mhm.
I get, dude, you're like 22 at this point, and it's like this is such a I don't know. It's like it feels like it get bleak real quick, and then
Mm.
in that you lose hope. But I don't think he does, because I think he's writing all these songs to say in the end to have hope.
Yeah, I think it's like, what do you do after you have this realization of finality? Do you live in that or do you live? You know?
Right.
And I think it's like that decision making process of like you've seen what finality looks like, and either you dwell and drown in that or you keep going.
See, now that you said that, Jeff, I'm looking at the last two lines. Well,
mm-hmm.
three lines, I guess. And what struck me about the last two lines. So exclude forever and just look at the last two lines. One's in present tense, one's in past tense.
Yeah.
And I've always found that very intriguing because it's like you're alive, you're dead, right?
Mm.
Present tense, past tense. But so now I'm wondering, is that about his grandmother? You know, she says she pulled her punches and she burned with her cigarettes, and then it's past tense. Now they have died.
I
Now
mean,
that
it could.
you said that story, I'm like, oh, okay. That, I mean, maybe that's what that means. I mean, that always stood out to me.
Well, I think you can even take the grandma out of it because it's like pull your punches and burn with your cigarettes. Like, well, first of all, pull your punches is interesting because it's saying don't hit that hard. Like, don't actually try your best, or I don't know,
Right.
like you're holding back a little bit,
Yeah.
and you just and burn with your cigarettes. Like, that doesn't seem like someone who's like living their life to their fullest. And then I think agree when you get to the past tense, it's like in the end, does anybody ever live their life to the fullest? You know what I mean? It's almost kind of like that's like a bleaker reading of it, I think.
Oh, that's almost nihilistic. That's how
Yeah.
bleak that is. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like lick the ashtray nihilistic. I don't know if I like that anymore. No, but no, it it does it begs the question that if we're only around for so much time, do any of us really ever get the chance to enjoy it? Right? Because if we're not around so long and we have to do all these commercialistic, capitalistic things like get a job, buy shit you don't need, and just use that to circumvent your own life, do any of us really live? This band's hard.
Well,
This is a deeper band than you think. Always is.
well,
Always
and
is.
I think so. I think the chorus. Now that I'm looking at with that in mind, we're betting on our own lives, making up for all the time we lost in this house of cards. So like we're betting on ourselves. We already admit we've missed out on things. We've wasted time, but we're in a house of cards, and we all know what a house of cards is not a very strong structure. Uh, and one breath could knock it all down. And then he says, but you leave with your eyes and you give it away. So like you're playing in a poker game, I guess, or something in that sense. And like you're trying to get through it, but you can't. And then the people you love get lost in the shuffle. And then it screams, when you leave nothing but broken hearts. Again, it sounds bleak.
It does, but I think there's something to like pull your punches in terms of like not living in utter chaos. Like, don't be a full chaos agent. Like, take some care with your life. Like, I don't know. I kind of see it as like pulling back, not in a negative way, but in like a
No.
like, watch what you're doing. This is all could be over.
Well, I like that because then the fragility of life is the house of cards. It's like you need to be careful with this life.
Yes, and don't just live recklessly.
Yeah, I like that. It's much more positive.
I like it much more positive. It becomes more of a cautionary tale kind of vibes to it. Like, learn from this and don't go to the extremes. Well, maybe because the extremes are not good, right?
No.
Yeah, okay.
It's all in balance.
It is all a balance. We keep talking about this, Jeff. I'm just gonna get I'm gonna wind up. That's what I'm gonna do.
Well,
that was a terrible segue. I tried. It just
that's okay. I'm gonna wind us back and say, why don't we listen to Standing on the Edge of Summer?
Oh, that's good. Let's do that because then I have time to think of a new segue.
There you go. Here is Standing on the Edge of Summer. All right, Bill. This is the penultimate song, not the penultimate track.
Penultimate song. That's correct. That is correct. Here we go.
We're gonna do Wind Up.
Wind up like a tinker toy. Just wind
up.
What do you think this song's about, Jeff? I'm very interested to hear your thoughts on this.
Well, you're gonna have to wind me up to figure it out because again, I feel like this is a little bit, to me, was a little bit more about feeling than it was about a story.
So what are the feels do you have from it?
I would say this is kind of like this idea of like you don't know if you're going to be able to quite do it, accomplish it. That's kind of what I got from it. It's like kind of self-doubt.
What do you think, Catherine?
I get the feeling that it's like being on the precipice of something and not sure how you're going to do it. Like it's that feeling of like giving yourself, like almost like pumping yourself up to do something.
Like you're winding up to fight against something, right?
Yeah. But winding up to explode. Like I'm intrigued by that line of like, what does that mean.
The only thing I get out of it with that, because they get winded up, they can't win against whatever it is a
Mhm.
feeling I get. And I think that kind of really holds true at the end when he's like, I'm giving up, I'm marching in time with your drums. I'm letting go of everything I once loved. Like, I've fallen in line. I'm now
Yeah.
so enraged, but I can't fight it anymore. So I'm just gonna, I don't know, follow suit.
Yeah. I
Complex
think
song.
like
Yeah, go ahead.
you're stretching to meet expectations that you'll never reach. It's like trying to get yourself somewhere else and like really like mustering the strength to do something, but you just can't. And knowing that you can't and you just kind of give up.
I mean, that's the sentiment I feel. The giving up is like this.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't a song where I'm like they're gonna power through at the end. It's like,
Mm-mm.
yeah, they
No.
really. It's which is interesting because you wind something up for it to go right. In theory, like
Oh yeah, you're
for it to
right. No, you're
work,
right. Mm-hmm.
but the winding up to explode says like the winding's not gonna work this time.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-mm. No, it's you're gonna wind. No, the Tinker Toy is not gonna do anything but fall in line with the other Tinker Toys. Just scoot right in behind them.
I don't have
This is
enough
more.
Tinker Toys.
This is a song about feelings more than story.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's very at least we'll say it's abstract,
Yeah, abstract. Yeah, which is kind of what they do. They go back and forth a little bit. Like
which I'm okay with. I like the idea of kind of more linear stories and then more abstract ones.
we get through this abstract song, and we have to ask ourselves a question, and that question is, how long is the night? And it's also the title of the final song.
Oh, well, how convenient is that? How long, Jeff? How long is the night?
It depends on what time of year, really, and depends on what you consider the beginning of night and the end of night. Oh, are you asking like about the song? Okay.
Yeah, in a more thought-provoking way. You also forgot geography because like Alaska will get dark really early, depending on
Well,
the time of year.
who's
But
to say if night is actually dark? Can night can it be the night of your life, like the
oh,
end of your life? I actually kind of feel like this song is a suicide note. That's kind of like my like abstract feel
Mm-hmm.
about this song when I like think about it. I'm like, that's my question. I'm like, is this a suicide note?
it's if I feel it's a bleak song, it makes me think of that ultimately they just want to have Catcher in the Rye at the end, where like you're not there to
Yeah.
catch me, you know, and like
Mm-hmm.
it feels like it's a story about somebody just who's very alone,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
which is a theme throughout a lot of the album. And again, I think there's a lot of like loss of innocence in this song and it's loss of youth and changing, growing up, growing different, being different. But yeah, it's how long is the night? It's very pleading. Like, how long am I gonna put up with this? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's
It feels very much like living in depression. It's like,
Yeah.
how long does this last? And do I want to keep trying? And a lot of the songs in this album feel that. It's like the struggle of like life itself.
maybe Jeff has a hard face. Maybe he's one of those guys where like you look at it and be like, man, you've had a rough, and I can just see it on your face. You know what I mean? I
Mm-hmm.
just a lot of the songs are very. I feel like I know these people and that they've had it rough, and like my empathy comes out where I want to help them,
Mm-hmm.
and put myself in their shoes and try to actually make things better. Because I think you're right, Jeff. I think there's a voice here that is very alone and distraught and just needs someone to catch them, to guide them, to help them out.
Well, they're asking for that, right? And they're
Right.
I mean, literally you go through the song, like if you literally go through it verse by verse and then going to the bridge and everything, like the verses you're talking about, like um you see the handwriting on the walls and on the autumn leaves that fall, what are we going to do? Trees are giving up on us. Like that idea of like the trees blowing leaves is like, taking it personally, like maybe the trees won't say bloom for me. It's like, and then it gets to this place where it's like, and the night, it never ends. Like that's the thing. Night to me now is depression. I think
Yeah.
Catherine, you said that, like that's what
Yeah.
night is, right? Night is
Yeah.
depression and it never ends. And then they get to this bridge, and he's like, I will never sleep again. And then the scream, I will never even close my eye. Like, it's like, I will never sleep again. So it's not about like night and going to bed. It's like, what's the point of going to sleep? Like, there's no ending to this.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
And
even
then,
yeah,
yeah, let's go ahead.
I was gonna say the photo album they have is the only like bright thing they have. Even says it's the only thing I have to live for is just these But it's funny we use juxtaposition again. The juxtaposition of the bright photos against the dark sky, the night sky. So like, but the day was so bright in the pictures. It's so like looking back, it was so nice and warm, and now it's not.
Well, if you look at like traditional story structure, like, if you get to the denouement of the story right before that, you're going to get to the end of like the lowest moment, basically. And usually the lowest moment is like when the Dark Night of the Soul, and you're like, oh, this is the worst it gets, whatever. In this one, it's reversed. We get to the post chorus right before the outro, and it's all I ever see. The day that looks so bright in the pictures of the photo album gave me, it's all I have to live for. Like there's this moment of like, oh, are they going to get out of it?
Right.
And then no, they're falling down, and you're not there to catch them. So like they have this moment of hope, and it falls apart.
It's funny because I even feel like musically they mess with you with that way, because
Yeah.
it's the song starts to build and you're like, oh, but then it just kind of whooshes out. Like there's no like a massive no double snare at the end. Where it's like bye and we're gonna be fine and safe. Like no, it just kind of it builds and then just kind of quietly goes.
Well,
yeah, I think it's continuing the story you start with in understanding the car crash. It's like wrapping up, like all we have are these pictures of somebody that we lost. They're not here to like help you out of the darkness. Maybe they once were. And like, what
that's
else
so good.
what else do you have? Nothing.
That's so great. Yeah. No, that's awesome. And it just made me think like also if we're outroing the album on this, I'm falling down and you're not here to catch me. Is this the full collapse? Is that what this is? This moment?
Yeah, right. This is no, you're right. That's I love that. I love exactly how you two are interpreting this, and I'm now going to go along with you guys. I'm gonna wind up and follow your drum. But no, we're building up. This is the full collapse. It's over. We have collapsed. Not a partial, not a sorta, full collapse.
And back to what Catherine talked about earlier about Jeff's voice in this, especially in this song, especially at the end of this. It's like it's cracking. It's like literally like his voice is a pure instrument that really captures all of this at this point.
And you have throughout the camera metaphor periodically in understanding the car crash, it's the lights flash, the cameras flash. Here it's just the albums that are left, and then that's it.
Bill, let's play it. Let's play How Long Is the
Night? Sure, that's fine with me. Go right ahead.
All right. Here is the last full song on the album. Not the last track, but the last song. How Is the Night from 2001's Thursdays. 2001 Full Collapse. How Long Is the Night? All right, so we finished the songs. We had an intro to this album, track 1. Track 12 is the outro. It's called I-1100. A bookend, if you will.
A bookend, because we pick up where we left off with the last one. We now added more lyrics to it. The tide is high on 14th Street. Rain's come in to clear the heat. The way in is the same way out. The way up is the same way down. Now there is no safe way down.
No safe way out.
Just thought you might end on a happy note. Nope, we're not going to do that.
Yeah, the robots start to think again. Also, prescient to think like here we are in the forefront of the AI wars,
right?
And here's Jeff already back in 2001. Like, oh, the robot's starting to think. Not looking good for us.
I think it's funny that he goes into the tide is high on 14th Street, because like 14th Street, like the start of Lower East Side.
Yeah.
And we talked about the Lower East Side and the other in Paris in Flames. And so it's a little connective tissue. And even then the rain, one of the other songs has rain in it. That's the same song.
It's same song. The rain comes down.
Same song.
Well, they're it's like Noah's Ark, right? We're gonna flood out everybody and see if you're not on the Ark, you're out. So is that part of his erasure? We're just gonna drown it all,
I guess. I mean, it kind of goes back to the same. We'll all be the same someday. That up is what is it? And the way in is the same way out. The way up is the same way down. So it seems like there's only one way to go here. There's only one entrance or exit. Why do you think these two songs are here? Like, are they needed?
It's interesting because we don't really. I mean, that line now points out that's the connection back to Paris is Burning or Paris in Flames. But I don't I guess you could go without them, but like they do. It is kind of a downer of an album once you get through it. Like,
Yeah.
you need a way in and a way out before you move on to like whatever you're gonna listen to next. I don't know. Maybe you're gonna go listen to Olivia Rodrigo next. I don't know. You know.
It's I've always wondered, and to be honest, somewhat struggled with the purpose of the two songs. I think it's to set a vibe, to set a tone, and
Yeah.
to bookend it, and because they also never do this again.
Right.
Right.
So
It does.
Go ahead, you go ahead.
It does feel like ultimately, like whether, yeah, because I also struggle to feel like beyond just connecting or sandwiching the album, like what are these two things doing? But it does feel like it is just an undercover concept album. It is this like start to finish, painting this story of like trying it out. What do we do with this whole theme? How can we make it complete? How can we make it a full collapse? And I think that's ultimately like what the point is. Whether it's successful or not, I don't know. Because I think, oh, I'll tell the truth. I stopped the album before this.
Yeah. I've always kind of struggled with like, what's the point of these songs? I don't think they're necessarily needed, I mean,
Right.
I think the album stands so well on its own. Now I want to hear a true Thursday concept album, because I bet you that would sound bonkers.
Yeah.
I'm here for that. But okay, I think we're just gonna let this one go into the ether. Where I don't know. It's there.
Well, I have a question. Did you know what he was saying in these songs before you did a
No,
close?
I did not. I did not.
Me too. So I have to be admit, I never really like zeroed in on what he was saying here. I just it was a feeling, and as a feeling, it like takes me from my life and transfers me into this full collapse world.
Yeah.
And this is the way out of it. Like, oh, I've been through a lot of feelings here. It's time to get out of here.
Mm-hmm.
So I think on that reason,
and then we have the fade out, where we go back. Okay, now we're going to segue back into our normal existence. Yeah. See, now I just said that this Jeff. This reminds me a lot when we saw Requiem for a Dream together in the theater. And do you remember seeing that movie together?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Do you remember?
You usually don't forget the first time you see Requiem for a Dream.
No, it's a hard movie to forget. And I remember driving. The movie ended. The lights came up. We left the theater. You and I were speechless.
Yeah.
All the way to the car, and we drove for 15 minutes before either one of us said anything.
Yeah.
I feel like that movie could have used like segues like this, like to help me get in and then out of the movie, because it made me think of that, because we were silent for so long after that movie. That's a tough movie to get through. That's a tough movie.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. One real quick Thursday story that has nothing to do with this time period, but I saw Thursday 2021, late 2021. It was one of my first shows post-pandemic, even though people are still getting COVID every day.
Yeah.
The pandemic still goes on. Doesn't matter. Anyway, went to see Thursday. They're playing with Cursive. That was the show. That's why I had to go. They're playing a small venue downtown that is notoriously hot. Always hot. The air conditioner never really works. But it was like November-ish, so it was a little cold and wet out. So I threw on my jean jacket and put on my mask, because we're still not sure about this COVID thing. I throw on my earplugs because I'm not 19 anymore. And I'm standing in the back, my arms crossed, watching Thursday. And Jeff had, a couple nights earlier, had broken his foot and was on a little scooter. But he couldn't take painkillers because he's a recovering heroin addict. So he can't do anything about it. So he's in pure pain. And I'm like, wow, we are all so old.
Yes.
like me, my mask and my
ear protection, very wisely, wisely using
ear
protection.
I'm like, am I too old to be at shows? I'm like, no, they're playing. I'm like, no, I'm not too old to be at shows. It's fine. Then literally a dude who looks a lot younger is running from the pit with another guy around his arm. And I see that guy. I'm like, oh my God, is he hurt? I'm like, no, not hurt. He looks sick. And 3, 2, 1, blah, barfs all over my jacket. And I'm like standing there, and I'm just like, is the universe trying to tell me something? Well, if it is, I'm not listening. Because I'm going to go see Thursday next week. So it's fine.
Go see Thursday. Oh, sorry for your jacket. That's a horrible experience.
It's okay. I watched it like 3 times, but to be honest, I never think I'll ever wear it again.
Well, that's the album. We've reached full collapse. We have gone all the way
Yes.
down to the bottom. I'm now going to ask you guys a series of questions, and you're going to have a very tough time, like I am, in answering them. Start with you, Jeff.
Yeah.
Jeff, what do you think is the best song on this album? And
I
you can't use the first and the last songs. They do not
right.
count.
Well, yeah,
So
we
for
won't
the, yeah,
count those.
we will
Yeah.
not count them. So out of the actual songs, what is the best song?
Paris in Flames.
You went right for it. You went right in.
Yeah. I don't
Went
know.
right in.
It's just again we talked about it. Just the fact they were even like bringing this to the forefront of conversation in 2001 in one of their
Mhm.
songs. It just it's powerful then. It's powerful now, and it's still relevant now. And you know they're letting us know that people this there's a group of people in charge who are trying to erase people. We can't let that happen.
Catherine, what is the best song on the album?
Honestly, I struggle with this because I feel like objectively I might have a different answer, but subjectively I'm gonna say Wind Up.
Wind Up.
Ooh.
Good song. Well, because like that's such a good song. It's funny because you're like, well, naturally, like I think I'm supposed to say understand in a car crash, right?
Yeah,
Because that's the
exactly.
it's
Right.
like
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like
right.
I'm supposed to, and it's like, but part of me is like, but that's not the best song on the album. It's really not. I don't think it is, Jeff. I think you're right. I think it's Paris in Flames. I think it's just it's a song was so ahead of its time, and
Mhm.
it's the one where I was like, this is it. This is an amazing song. An amazing song from a band that's willing to talk about something nobody else at that time frame was willing to talk about. And so I agree with you, Jeff. I'm gonna say Paris of Flames. I'm gonna say Paris of Flames. A lot of this is just like gut punch feels. I'm like, this is what I'm rolling with at the moment. Ask me in 20 minutes, I might change my mind. I mean,
I was
it's
Right.
just gonna say that, Phil. I feel like of all the albums we've covered, what you think is the best song will change every hour on this
every
album.
hour. It's
And
just
that,
this is yeah,
well, before we go on, can I pose a question?
sure.
Is Thursday's Full Collapse a masterpiece?
I think it is. I think it is. I think it's probably one of the best albums that have ever come out ever. It really is. I mean, admittedly, it did not make my top 10 Coming to the Island. So maybe it's sitting in the 11 or 12 spot, but it is one of the best. I think it's one of the best albums ever.
I would agree.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This is
absolutely.
why I don't understand why Thursday isn't a bigger band than they are. I'm always going to be befuddled by this because none of this makes sense. It should be. They should be like one of the biggest bands ever. And yet here we are. Not to say they don't have success. They've been a very successful band. I feel like they should have been bigger than they were. What do you think, Jeff? Is this
I
is this a
I
is it a
think
masterpiece? Yeah.
I don't think I did think it before this exercise, but having to really sit down with it so many years later, because I love War all the time. Like if you ask me, I would say that's my favorite Thursday record.
Yeah.
And
That's yeah.
but that's not saying that this one isn't even better. Like I don't know. It's again, it's for me, it's those two albums.
See, maybe that's why they're not as big as they ought to be because everybody came like you can't we because I had the same kind of feeling. I was like, this album is so much better than I thought. And it's
Mhm.
only because during this exercise I went back to it. I'm like, this album's amazing. And then maybe like we're all late to the party. I don't know. All right, Jeff. Which one of these songs are you gonna skip?
Uh
And reminder, you cannot use the first and last
yeah, no,
songs. Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
gonna skip A Hole in the World, not because it's a bad song, but literally because it's right before Cross Out the Eyes. It's sometimes I know it's my like I feel like
I
it's my
know.
cheese my cheap way of getting out of this. Sometimes I'm like, well, if it's the song before the song I really want to listen to, it loses sequencing takes away from it. But
Yeah, I hear you.
it and not that anything, but we talked a little bit about that one. It's kind of like, is this a love song? It's one of those more like esoteric kind of like, what's this actually about song? So like I feel okay with like if I have to skip one, I could skip this one.
Mm-hmm. Catherine, what about you? What are you gonna skip?
Um, this is a tough one because I think this is like a start to finish album for me.
Yeah.
But I think if I were gonna pick one, I would maybe this is controversial, but I would maybe pick Standing on the Edge of Summer.
I could see that.
It's not it's not controversial. I agree. It's Stand on the Edge of Summer. And
Yeah.
yeah. And the only reason why I say that is it's the most on the nose.
Yeah, it feels kind of
You know what I mean?
tonally different from everything else.
It like they're like it's like their version of a pop song, like trying
Yeah.
to write something meant to be big.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's it. I think that's also again, this is an album of like, well, I really got to like pick and choose and really kind of be nitpicky about things. And I,
Absolutely.
that's all it is. It just feels a little off from the rest of it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't
That's
know. It just seems like you guys are going after the emo song. That's all I hear.
I mean, yeah, just most emo title of them all on this one. Yeah, where are you? Well, I'm standing on the edge of summer. All we're missing is 17 more words about like and this misanthropic youth of something else. I don't know.
Mhm.
Jeff, what song is everybody sleeping on? What do you think? What do you think is the song people are like? You know what? You should really pay attention to. It's better than you think.
I mean, this is my other one that was up for best song, so uh, it will be my sleeper. But because I slept on it today, autobiography of a nation is
Autobiography.
again just like again also with the slower shoegazy opening, the Cure opening, and like, oh, is this gonna be different? And like, oh no, we're about to get really fucking intense and really like look at ourselves and our status in this country and where that came from, and look at all the horrible things we did and we're guilty of it too.
Yeah.
Like, yikes!
Yeah.
Wow.
Yikes is right. Yikes is right.
Mhm.
Catherine, what about you? What do you think is the sleeper song of the album?
I agree with Jeff. I think it needs more
Um,
shine than it gets for sure.
um, only because I changed my opinion on it. I am the killer. I've changed my opinion on that song. And I'm gonna put that. I think it's a sleeper song because I was like, wow, I think there's more meat to this. Because it asked me prior to this, not reading lyrics again, not going through it, I would have said that's the skip. And
Mm.
now I don't see that, so I'm gonna by default put that into the sleeper.
Yeah, you've been sleeping on it for 21 years,
I have, so it makes me think others have.
22
So
years. Yeah.
22. So I think I'm gonna go with it. Yeah, that's my sleeper pick. That's my sleeper pick. Jeff, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
I don't know what my question is. I just want to figure out if there's a way we could talk about Jet Black New Year.
Don't worry, Phil. I hear you. Because yes, the next album will actually be their major label debut. It's called War All the Time. That will come out in 2003. In 2002,
Mm-hmm.
I almost said 22. What? Uh, their contract dispute with Victory was messy. It sounded like they tried to like get out of it and sign out of it, and then they were like, there was like suing, and there was a whole bunch of stuff. So they had to at some point put out another one more release for Victory. So they did a very I don't want to say lazy, but a very simple EP to do, where they just recorded a bunch of they recorded 4 songs off this album, and the 4 songs were autobiography of a nation, understanding a car crash, standing on the edge of summer, and Paris in Flames, all recorded live at the Warped Tour that year.
Mm-hmm.
And then they added one extra song called Jet Black New Year. So very much a B-side song thrown on this little EP to basically get them out of their Victory Records contract.
Right. Which at one point Jeff even literally told audiences, "Don't buy it." Like that's how much they wanted. They were like, "We are done with Victory. Don't even buy this album because we want to be out that bad. I just don't even give Victory anything to it." That's amazing that they're like straight up, "No, don't buy it. Don't buy it."
Yeah.
Don't buy it.
So this could have been a throwaway song. In my humble opinion, it's one of my favorite Thursday songs by far. It is ferocious. It is so intense. Also, the sound is bigger. This is to me like the it was the clue to like, oh, our sound's about to get much bigger on the next album, much more polished. Also, as a My Chem superfan, backing screaming vocals.
That's right. Who's
by
on
One Gerard Way
on
here, which I makes sense because that's around the time that probably right after Jeff had produced the first My Chem record.
Yeah.
So that connection was already kind of really solid. But this song, like, I mean, holy shit! When I hear this song, anytime, and here we are 21 years later since it came out, it's still like I can't sit down to their song. It's like that opening. I was just like, oh my god, here we go, and then it starts and it goes crazy. Yeah.
I mean, it it's funny. This is I will say I think it's arguably Thursday's best song
Mhm.
ever. It's also, I think, the most important. 'Cause I think you're right, Jeff. You were like, you want to know where we're going? Here you go, guys. This is what we sound. This is what we're going to sound like. Because this sound is how they are the rest of the way. It's such a departure from how they were on Full Collapse, where everything sounded kind of polished but it still felt really fully thawed all the way through. I don't know, fully like baked in the oven. This song is bonkers. The whole song is bonkers. I mean, it's got everything you ever want in a song, which is always great. So it's actually like a real true pop song, which is hilarious. Thinking about what it is, it's such a good song. Sonically, the loudest thing. I'm always and I'm with you, Jeff. Every time I hear it, I'm like, all right, let's go. I'm gonna start counting down like the rest of them.
I
This
mean,
is all,
it's also the greatest New Year's Eve song or New Year's song I've ever written. Like, because that's what it's all hanging around like a New Year's Eve, right? Like, and like,
right.
I mean, this line, like, calendars dying at New Year's Eve parties, and we kiss hard on the lips and swear this year will be better than the last. Like,
Oh man.
to tee up your ferocious like chorus and everything, like to be able to say that and sing that. I don't know.
But they've all had bad experiences on New Year's, right?
Yeah,
If you go look at the I wonder if they ever have it on any of the vinyl pressings. I don't know. But the original CD there were stories written in the booklet from all the bad things that happened to them. I mean, and I remember the one with Jeff. Jeff had I think his girlfriend was talking about kind of just having a bad day, right? Typical stuff like that. This fell on them or whatever. And he kind of was in the bathroom, kind of like almost having like a panic attack because earlier in that day, a little boy had fallen from an apartment building and had died on the ground. And it's just so like the kind of juxtaposition of that, but
yeah.
it's every one of them had a story where something really kind of bad happened to them on New Year's. And so supposed to be the literal celebration of something new, and you have all these really horrible things that happen to it, which is why I think the countdown is so telling, where they do the 10 seconds all the way down. One of the reasons why I think Jeff's one of the best lyricists ever is during these number sequences where 8 faces turned away from the shock, 7 windows, and 6 of them are locked.
Mm-hmm.
Right? 5 stories falling. So put all that together. Somebody went through a window and fell all the way down to the ground. That is such smart writing. Bonkers. I'm telling you right. One of the best lyricists ever.
Yeah, that whole countdown goes 10 seconds left until midnight, 9 chances to drown ourselves in black hair dye, which, by the way, a young Jeff did dye his hair black because of this.
I'm not surprised.
8 faces turned away from shock, 7 windows, and 6 of them are locked. 5 stories falling, 4 ever and ever. 3 cheers, not to revenge, but to the mirror.
Not to the wrench. Yep.
Or sweet revenge, I should say. Now there are 2 of us. Can we have just one last dance? And this is like he talks that through, and then we just like let loose with the jet black, the ink that spills. Like it's just the intensity of this song is unbelievable. Phil, I know it's not on Full Collapse, but can we play this song?
We absolutely can. We absolutely can.
Hooray! Here is Jet Black New Year by Thursday off their 5 Stories Falling EP. Woo! That song. Phil, I was just playing.
I was just playing it in my head. I was just literally just playing along. Once we finished it, I kept it going because I had to.
Can't stop.
Keep going with
Can't stop.
Can't stop.
Won't stop.
Can't stop. Won't stop with that song. That song is ridiculous. What are we gonna do now? We're gonna say thanks. That's what we're gonna do. So I want to do a quick little thank you to our guest Catherine. Thank you for coming on the show. I want to say thank you to our executive producer, my wife Megan, who told me the shirt looked nice, and I appreciate that. Folks at home, I'm wearing a shirt that has a vinyl record on it, so just in case you want to know. We are on the Instagram. You also go watch us on YouTube if you want. We have threads going, but I don't do much with threads. I just keep it because I didn't want anybody else to have the name.
I get you.
Yeah, that's really what it comes down to. Remember to like us and subscribe and comment because we might comment back. on any of the Spotify or on the YouTube. Jeff, can you tell me how easy is it on Spotify to do a podcast?
Spotify podcasting couldn't be easier. Spotify. It's really hard if you can't speak, but if you can, and your circuits don't get fried, you can use Spotify for podcasts. Make your own podcast about anything, but throw on some songs. If you want to do a podcast just on Thursday himself and go through every single song, why not do it? What would you call it? I don't know. Full collapse again? I don't know. Figure it out. Anyway, it's a great way to make a podcast. You should do it.
You should do it, and then we'll come on your show. I'm just gonna throw that out there. You tell me to come on your show, maybe I'll show up. Maybe.
Yeah.
Captain, thank you again for coming on the show. Do appreciate you taking the time to talk to us about the full collapse.
Absolutely. Thank you both for having me.
Well, Phil, one thing I can say now is Happy New Year.